Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Dr. Emre Bayram. I'm from Boston Consulting Group. And with Turkey-US Business Association, last year I coordinated the efforts to prepare the report to increase bilateral trade to 100 billion US dollar. And this year we worked on a follow-on report with TAIP, unveiling the opportunities coming with COVID-19. I will briefly summarize the key findings of this report in a minute, but before then, let me introduce you our great panelists. Today, we will have three great names on board. The first one is Dr. Janet Vessotskie. Janet is the Deputy Vice President responsible for regulatory affecting pharma, pharmaceutical research and manufacturers of America. Her institution represents the country's leading pharmaceutical researchers and biotechnology. And Janet will be informing us about the current efforts to develop life-saving treatments and vaccines. She is the go-to person to have a good understanding of what's currently happening in healthcare industry and the existing efforts to find a resolution to the health problem coming with COVID-19. Our second panelist is also from healthcare industry, Andrew Whitman. He is the Senior Vice President responsible for Government Affairs and Market Development at Varian. Varian is the world's leading supplier of radiotherapy for treating cancer. I think Whitman will inform us about the healthcare industry, but beyond this, I think we will be hearing Andrew, especially about the COVID-19 impact and opportunities on Turkey-US economic relations. And our third panelist is Mehmet Baysan. Mehmet is a partner at Michelman and Robinson's New York office. Mehmet is known for assisting foreign companies in business operations across multiple industries. So he has exposure to several industries, and I'm pretty sure that he will let us know the newly rising opportunities between Turkey and US, reflecting his experience with his clients. So, and I would also like to thank Whitman and Robinson for sponsoring. So maybe before moving to the panelists, I can briefly summarize the key findings of the report at BCG we have prepared with Turkey-US Business Council. I would also like to thank Mr. Mehmet Yalçın'da, the chairman of TAIP, and also Mr. Nail Olpak, the president of Foreign Economic Relations Board, for their continuous support on the project. Perhaps some of you have already joined last year's conference, and we have presented the findings of last year. Last year, we have focused on bilateral trade between countries, Turkey and US, and we have identified the key sectors of bilateral trade as well as the key levers. And speaking of these key industries, there are some conventional industries like automotive parts, textile, and also aerospace and medical devices on the US side. This year, of course, last year, none of us had predicted what was coming, and none of us had forecasted the COVID-19 impact. Now, can we see that COVID-19 will have, in the short term, have a negative impact on strong macroeconomic fundamentals, global trade and investment. But as BCG, we also believe that COVID-19 will bring opportunities for countries and for companies that have the capacity to have a clear strategy and to navigate through the crisis. So this year, with Turkey-US Business Association, we prepared a report, a sequel report, and have focused on the opportunities as well as the risks that come with COVID-19 on Turkey-US business economic relations. And I won't talk too much, but I will have three key main messages. The details will be in the report. The first key message is that, of course, COVID-19 will bring fundamental changes in the global economic system, and this will come through changes in the global supply chains. We know that, and this will have an impact on global production, trade, as well as the investment flows. We know that before the COVID-19, multinational companies have been focusing their supply chain strategies on efficiency. But with the COVID-19, the strategy has shifted to risk-based supply chain strategy, and this will encourage more diversification, nearshoring, and encouraging domestic production. And we also know that COVID-19 likely to escalate existing trade conflicts between different countries and also return into domestic production trends. So this is the first finding. The second finding related with this, we believe that as a result of this and as a result of existing trade conflicts, we expect a major shift in trade flows and also investment flows, especially between US and China. And Turkey, among other countries, can be one of the countries to seize this emerging opportunity. Besides that, the opportunity could be between 150 billion and 200 billion dollars. But we don't need to forget that Turkey is not the only country to have a larger pie from this share. Vietnam, Taiwan, Mexico, Poland have been all good candidates for this role, and Turkey needs to do fundamental things and different things that Turkey did before compared in the past. So the third point is that in order to take a larger pie from this emerging opportunity, Turkey should not limit itself with its conventional industries. It's true that Turkey has some strong industries with strong competitive advantage, but Turkey needs to make bold moves in three areas. And these areas are, the first one is digital. We have investigated this sector. We have talked with multiple industry representatives in Turkey, and we have identified that surprisingly, Turkey has enormous but underutilized potential in data services, cloud services, software services, and technology startups. We believe that this will be the first area that Turkey needs to focus in order to strengthen and in order to utilize trade and investment opportunities between US. The second area is electronics. As you know, electronics is the largest sector in global trade, and China has the largest share in this area. And we see that Turkey has certain capability, and in the long to medium to long run, Turkey needs to invest in electronics, especially cross-cutting new trends such as IoT, smart cities, Industry 4.0. So this will be key to serve Turkey's bilateral trade between US. And the last big bold move and big opportunity will be in the area of joint ventures. We believe that Africa will be a key playground and will serve enormous opportunities both for American and Turkish companies. And we have identified Turkish and American companies have complementary skills, especially in the field of construction. We see that there will be enormous investments in construction sites in Africa, and Turkish construction companies have strong skills, especially operating in foreign countries, and American companies have design technology skills, and also they could bring financing opportunities. And this will have an enormous impact to have a larger influence on the African continent for both US and Turkey. So we believe that the report is too much detailed. I don't want to talk too much, but we believe that of course, there will be negative impact of COVID-19 on global trade and investment, but we think that it will also bring multiple opportunities. And it is actually, there are a lot of things to do, especially in this field, and we need to take an action. Perhaps I don't want to take too much of time. We can move to the panel. We will have three great panelists, and we will have 2 rounds. And in each round, our panelists will speak around like 3 minutes. And after the panel, we will have a Q&A session. And by the way, you can just raise your question using the chat function, and we can address these questions to the panelists. We can move to our panelists. So Janet, perhaps we can start with you. Your institution represents the leading pharmaceutical companies in the US, and you have extensive knowledge about like the current efforts to develop life-saving treatments and vaccines. It would be great if you can let us know the recent developments so that we have a biological and healthcare baseline for our economic and business discussion. So can we see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, thanks for the opportunity to participate today. And as you said, I do work with some of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And so, yes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I can say that collaboration is unprecedented at this time. And if you think about it, we are in a global pandemic. So it's not going to be one treatment or one vaccine that is going to solve the issue for the entire globe. So from that perspective, I can say there's really been unprecedented collaboration among companies, among governments, and also working with academicians. We're taking a really comprehensive approach to address the COVID pandemic as a biopharmaceutical industry. To start with, we're screening global databases of compound libraries to try and identify potential products that can be tested in clinical trials that could be effective treatments for the disease, for the infection, and also the downstream effects. In addition, we're using novel technologies and scientific expertise to develop a vaccine that could actually prevent the disease. I will say we are at this point in time sharing the results of clinical trials in real time with governments and with all the companies, again, with the idea of sharing learnings and in the most efficient way possible, demonstrating the safety and efficacy of treatments and vaccines. Changing gears a little bit from the R&D, we're also thinking about manufacturing capacity and capabilities. So companies are ramping up production of current treatments that are needed for patients, but they're also looking at new capabilities so that when a vaccine or treatment is proven to be safe and effective, we have the ability and the capability to manufacture the products. In addition, we're looking to donate medicines and supplies to physicians and healthcare workers so that the folks on the front line that are actually treating patients have the supplies that they need. And finally, our companies are working with governments. So when a product, whether it be a treatment or vaccine, is shown to be demonstrated to be safe and effective, we will be able to make sure that patients have access to affordable treatments. And so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. Perhaps we can continue with Andrew. Andrew, you also represent the healthcare industry. Looking from your industry perspective, but also going beyond the industry scope. What do you think is the impact of COVID-19 on US-Turkey economic business relations in your perspective, especially with respect to the opportunities that you see as like vital to further strengthen the relation?
Sure. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure and honor to be here today. Excellent groundbreaking event and panel. I'm happy to answer that. I think prior to COVID-19, US-Turkish trade relations were making real progress. I think that's why we welcomed the agreement between President Trump and President Erdogan to increase the annual bilateral trade, as you'd mentioned, to both countries to 100 billion annually. Needless to say, as was previously mentioned, COVID-19 affected many, if not all, areas of international cooperation. Along with COVID-19 came an increased need for medical devices and PPE. And some of the PPE demand could be met locally in Turkey by shifting production from other goods towards PPE, But what was more challenging was getting medical device equipment from the U.S. over into Turkey. And as global supply chains, shipping and transport activities, and cross-border provisions were heavily impacted by COVID-19. I know for Varian, it was our task to continue to make sure that cancer patients, as you indicated, were the leading oncology device manufacturer and headquartered here in the U.S. in California. Our vision is a world without the fear of cancer. So we wanted to make sure that patients continued to have access, was to receive the best possible treatment. And that's why we supported our customers in Turkey in every way we could. I think, to give a little bit of, on this theme of giving a light at the end of the tunnel, just last month, we recently closed an acquisition of our local distributor and now have a local presence in Turkey. And just to demonstrate the importance of the U.S. Turkey trade relationship, I mean, we saw this as a growing market for us. The acquisition has enabled us to extend our operations in the market, not only in Turkey, but to enhance customer service, make us more local. So some of these obstacles we're seeing in COVID-19 start to go away a little bit, and to further expand cancer patients' access to advanced care in the region. Varian believes that a local presence in Turkey will have long-term benefits for our business. We believe in the present and actually and quite bullish on the future of the Turkish market. On top of that, I believe we'll be seeing a growing significance in our presence for Turkey for the whole southern and eastern and Middle Eastern region. So it's a very strategic market for both U.S. and Turkish trade relations. I don't believe that, I think that we've had some setbacks, and we have to, as you indicated in your report, I think we're going to have to rethink how we do business. But at the same time, I think that there's been some real positive and silver linings associated with that. Okay.
Thank you, Andrew. We can continue with Mehmet. Mehmet, as a lawyer, you represent clients in multiple industries, and I'm pretty sure that you have a larger view on these set of industries. How would you assess the newly rising opportunity in terms of trade, in terms of investments or joint ventures? So what do you think how did COVID-19 impact this relationship?
Thank you, Emre. First of all, obviously, thank you for having me. This is a wonderful opportunity. I've been attending it for many years, and this year we're doing it virtually, but I'm hoping to see everybody very soon in person. But thanks for having me and the opportunity. So I'll pick up where Mr. Whitman or Andrew left off. I'll just say Andrew. So with respect to what we're going through right now, I actually am not the sort of guy who's doom and gloom. I know a lot of lawyers, people are used to just hearing bad news and bad things from lawyers, but I'm actually trying to have a fresh and positive perspective. And of course, I'm saying this with a very heavy heart. I know COVID-19 continues to take lives on a daily basis around the globe. Therefore, for all those who are listening, please understand that I'm not saying these things lightly, and I'm just trying to approach it from a business perspective, which is the topic of discussion today. And from a business perspective, I think there's a lot of opportunity because change often brings opportunity. This includes new relationships. You mentioned JVs. JVs just don't happen overnight. People need to first meet with one another, work with one another, and then find ways to actually become partners with one another. So I believe, kind of the shakeup that COVID-19 reluctantly putting us through is definitely going to present those opportunities for businesses to explore new opportunities, to meet with new partners, to look for new ways to resolve their issues and problems. Well, this will only lead to robust and stronger relationships. So I am not entirely convinced that this is going to be the end of it all for business trade and global trade for next generations, for even our generation. So I see it positively. I think there's a lot that the business community could do. I think they should just not sit back, be proactive. because obviously this disease comes at a time where a lot of countries are realigning their positions. Political synergies and forces are forcing countries to do new things and to look for new ways. Turkey and US, I think, has a very unique relationship, which sometimes, because of the politics and the daily noise, we lose sight of. These two countries have been working for years and decades at very difficult times. I have no doubt that we can work together now. Therefore, I just think that COVID-19 should be perceived as an opportunity, and people should take it head on and try to see if Turkey can really fill that vacuum that some of these political and supply chain holes that have been left by the recent shifts. So I'm positive, and I think we'll be okay.
It's great that we all share this positive attitude. Maybe we can go back to Janet and to further understand the going forward opportunities especially in clinical trials and drug development. Janet, how would you assess Turkey could play a larger role in these clinical trials and these drug development efforts? And do you think that there might be cooperation opportunities between US and Turkish firms on this field?
Well, absolutely, to answer very briefly. But I think it's important to really kind of take a step back and think about what it is that we're trying to accomplish in terms of clinical trials globally. Again, it's, as I said in my first response, it's not going to be one product or one vaccine that's going to solve the issues globally. And so in terms of clinical trials, our companies are really taking a global approach to these things, and they are conducting clinical trials globally. But we also have to remember that we're talking about an infectious disease. We're talking about a virus. So to be able to conduct clinical trials, first of all, you have to go and do the trials where the virus is, there's a good incidence of virus. It doesn't help testing a treatment or a vaccine if you don't have circulating virus. You're just going to prolong the clinical trials. So thinking about where is the virus, and then also what is the clinical trial infrastructure that's in place. That's what, again, companies are thinking about to efficiently test products for COVID-19. So what can Turkey do? So Turkey is ranked 26th globally in terms of the number of clinical trials that are conducted annually. But when it's adjusted for the population and the GDP, as well as the presence of the pharmaceutical industry in Turkey, the rankings go down a little bit. So what can they do? So there's lots of opportunity there. But again, it goes back to the kind of infrastructure that needs to be in place to conduct clinical trials. So let me give you a couple of specific thoughts on that. One thing that is absolutely necessary when conducting clinical trials is the ethical committee reviews to be able to assess the protocol and ensure that patients' rights and safety are maintained. To have a network in place that can efficiently assess protocols in order to enable the initiation of clinical trials is highly important. Another example, and this is something that we're doing in the United States as well, is a public awareness campaign. A lot of people don't really know what clinical research is, or if they do, they have no idea how to get involved. If they are, who do I contact if I say, maybe I want to be a candidate for a vaccine trial? So again, a public awareness campaign would be very helpful to connect physicians and patients to really kind of, again, efficiently enroll patients to test the treatments and vaccines that we're developing.
Thank you, Janet. Maybe, Mehmet, I have taken some notes from the first round that you have underlined the importance of communication and interaction, because it takes time to develop business relations, especially in the case of joint ventures. It is based on trust, long time history. So thinking of the business communities of US and Turkey, what do you think that there will be specific roles? You could think of NGOs or governments, but speaking about the business community, what do you think that what should be the first step to initiate this communication, or what are the things to do when you see the business communities of two sides?
Well, I've been preaching this for almost 10 plus years. I think local presence, like Andrew was saying, is extremely important. And I know it takes a while to get there. And I do realize the Atlantic Ocean it's big, and it does take 10 hours to get to Turkey or to the United States. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, I believe business community is everything to this relationship, because I don't have to preach anyone here, but obviously it's proved time and time again that prosperity reduces any type of risk for conflict. So we do have to think of it from that perspective. We as businessmen, I mean, I'm a lawyer, but I see this community as businessmen. We do need to make trade comes first and politics second. And for that to happen, we just need to find ways and figure out different mediums where we can meet with one another. Certainly, NGOs and governments play a certain role trying to bring parties together, but business interests are always trump any other interest, because everybody obviously is trying to make a living and trying to find ways to make more money and to bring more money for their shareholders. So with that perspective, I think there's a lot that we could do, such as this conference is a great example. We're here talking about things, and this really expands the view. I'm sure your company's BCG's report, which I would love to see a copy, it identifies a lot of different areas where people can come together. But again, I think as opposed to just trying to do a one-off trade trade transaction, as a lawyer, what I've seen is if actually the parties get into longer deals, if they want to have a longer plan of trying to be there, being in Turkey or in the United States, this relationship is going to get better. This relationship definitely is going to trump any other political concerns and daily disputes that the nations and countries can run into. At certain times, it's inevitable. It happens. Everybody goes through them. So I think I want to emphasize local presence and having an eye for being there, touching the community, and becoming a part of the community. And just to end up, Chobani is actually a great example. I don't want to use their name also lightly, but they came to New York. He was a Turkish businessman. He actually became a community man in upstate New York. And now it became a different scale. Now the company itself is so much bigger. We can give a lot of examples for U.S. companies doing the same in Turkey. So if you want to expand this trade relationship and reach the 100 billion, we need to find ways to be more present in each other's lives and in each other's communities.
Perfect, Mehmet. Perhaps I can address the same question to Andrew. He has already underlined the importance of local presence. But Andrew, what are your thoughts on this? How can we strengthen the business, the role of business in strengthening Turkey-U.S. economic relations?
Well, I think, and I'd also like to see a copy of the report, because I'm gonna touch on two of the aspects that you raised earlier in the report. I think the COVID-19 pandemic has led to faster and somewhat unexpected adoption of digital and remote solutions that I think we believe can fundamentally change and improve the way health services are delivered globally, and I think that can apply to Turkey as well. In the health space, you focused on this in your opening about the role of data, cloud, and software services. And I think in the health space, I want to highlight two specific areas where the industry can support doctors and patients in Turkey. Specifically, I'm referring to telehealth solutions and access to innovation. In the telehealth space, remote training, consulting, and treatment planning services enable us to really support healthcare providers no matter where they're located. What we like to say is where you live shouldn't matter whether you live. And I think that we've really noticed this in times of COVID-19. This saves providers time, and it can spend time directly with their patients. Further, healthcare providers can use remote solutions to exchange some of their personal patient interactions with virtual ones. This is beneficial for immunocompromised patients, patients in rural areas or with limited mobility. And so this is really going to be a benefit. And so in the United States, for example, the government has made many temporary telehealth adjustments during COVID-19, and we're hoping the same will occur in Turkey for us to ability to conduct virtual visits. I think everybody has undergone that personally, or some there. And so we hope that these positive examples about the importance of telehealth can inform markets like Turkey to adopt similar policies and embrace innovative technologies and new ways of thinking as we imagine the future of healthcare. Another aspect, I think, where the business community can be helpful is in the area of infrastructure. The Turkish government has prioritized, for instance, in our area, healthcare capacity building projects. And we're committed to ensuring that these projects are completed along international standards. As a business, we want to be partner for public and private healthcare providers and help them to achieve the best results for their patients. The role that we can play here is not only to consult with healthcare providers on technology, but to find innovative financing solutions to implement our common projects accordingly to expand access in Turkey. So I think there's, I think, as Mehmet said, I'm very, you can hear it in my presentation as well. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. We're very excited about where the role that business can play in really expanding the markets. And I just touched on two of, I think, several areas that we've really explored as a company on how to expand our operations in Turkey.
Thank you, Andrew. I think right now we can move to take questions from the audience. I think so far we already have a question. Maybe I can address the question to our panelists and they can just answer this question from their respective point of views. And we strongly encourage the audience to raise their questions to our panelists. And the first question is, what type of international or bilateral agreements might we expect from your sectors to better equipped in a post-pandemic economy? So which one would you like to address this question, or any volunteers?
Well, I'll take it. There already is obviously a trade agreement between the U.S. and Turkey, so that we have to take that as the basis. And I know that's been circulated in the news that Turkey and U.S. has been wanting to or trying to find ways to expand on that relationship, possibly sign a more robust agreement that'll allow more trade, more free trade at certain points with less tariffs and such. Certainly, I think if the two countries can, or the business communities, I don't want to really refer to the countries, but the business communities, if they can find ways to be more connected, in terms of PPE, for instance, nowadays, obviously we know gloves and masks have been our high demand, and there are only a handful of companies who actually can produce them. If there's sector-specific developments that can take this relationship to a further position, I'm sure the governments would be inclined towards negotiating or potentially finding or drafting new agreements that would address those sectors specifically. Personally, do I think that's a high possibility? Likely not, because usually countries would like to have more broad agreements that will encompass a lot of different sectors. But I do expect that because of the shakeup, countries will be looking at their agreements and trying to find more suitable arrangements that addresses today's issues as opposed to the 1980s issues.
Janet, Andrew, would you like also to address this question as well?
I mean, I think I'll jump in real quick. I think that Mehmet, hit upon it. I think that with respect to trade agreements, I think some of the provisions we've seen in some other trade agreements more recently have kind of addressed some of the issues that we talked about, such as, digital trade, which is extremely important, as we're looking at supply chain, crossing borders and and things to that effect. That's critical. But I think, it goes back to kind of the focus of our panel. I think that a lot can be done, through the private sector in a little bit of a more expedited format, then by the time we finish negotiating trade agreements, it takes a little while. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities. I think the framework is already there for us to kind of act. But I think that there are obviously some chapters that have been written recently and protocols that have been written recently and a number of other trade agreements that could be mirrored, on some of these issues that could be applied. So I think it's kind of a parallel path. The private sector should continue down the road that it's on, while the governments work together to kind of continue to facilitate some of the free flow of supply across borders.
So I can just add a little bit, not in the post-COVID space, but in the current COVID space, where getting access to products, vaccines, supplies across the board, whether it's PPE or whatever, now is not the time to be putting up trade barriers. We're seeing, some movement, and again, supply chains are critically important. It's not the time to be saying manufacture locally. If you're really looking to get access for your patients and your population to what they need, now's the time to come together and cooperate and not put up barriers.
Thank you, Janet. We have a second question from the audience. Tell us about the impact of supply chain in your sections and the most nimble approach to local production versus nearshoring or offshoring. Andrew, Janet, since you are much more into manufacturing, perhaps you would like to address this one.
Again, I guess I'm just saying I don't know that I have much more to add versus the comments that I just made. Again, it's really critical at this point in time that we come together globally and cooperate and decrease the barriers that are out there, as opposed to putting up additional challenges for manufacturers, for governments, for everyone that's trying to really get things to the patients that need them. Now is not the time to be adding challenges, but rather looking for opportunities to reduce the barriers. From a regulatory perspective, this is not trade, but again, we're talking with health authorities and saying, please, now is not the time to do business as usual. Think about how you can, look to other health authorities and cooperate globally in order to get things done as efficiently as possible. So again, it really comes back to my consistent message is cooperation is needed at this time, not additional challenges.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps I can also address this question. Andrew, if you have further comments, please go on.
I think what I was going to say is that, I agree with Janet. I think now's not the time to be putting up barriers. I feel like, we are fortunate in the fact that we've got a robust infrastructure within Turkey that, so it doesn't require a lot of cross-border, but that's not the case in every country. And we have, cancer patients rely on being treated and not interruption of treatment. And so if a machine goes down and someone can't cross the border so that their patient can be treated, interrupting cancer patients' treatment it can be very detrimental, even by a day. And so this has real, barriers at different borders. COVID-19 has really shown us that I can tell you that we spend a lot of time trying to get folks in and out of different countries and get parts in and out of different countries. So I think that it really demonstrates the need to have open borders with respect to that. In terms of localized manufacturing, I think, again, this is something We always look at the markets that we're in and the demand in the markets that we're in terms of localization. We're not in a significantly high volume business. I think we manufacture about 600-700 machines a year. So we have to look at this very carefully, but it's something, but we always look at a big market where we can do local R&D and a number of other things that in our opinion is important, because local talent, we always take advantage of local talent. But I agree kind of with what's been said to date.
Thank you, Andrew. Perhaps I can add a few words to the last question, because this was also a topic that we covered in the report. We believe as BCG that the impact will be diversified across different sectors. So the sectors which will have national security concerns or healthcare sectors will have the highest impetus for localization. It is also related with the profit margins of the industries. So industries like healthcare or information security or telecom, these are much more likely to be localized. But industries that have like a medium profit share, and that the geographical proximity is important, like agriculture or automotive, these will probably be near short. Of course, I mean, the strategies of companies will diversify. So in industries where we see low profit margins like textile or simple manufacturing, we see diversification and offshoring will still be the key trend. But of course, I mean, there will be the impetus for localizing or nearshoring will diversify across companies, across industries. So there is no single answer. But that's a very good question. And we have to bear in mind that there won't be a single impact of COVID-19 on supply chain effect. I would like to thank all of our panelists. I think the good news is that we believe that COVID-19 will bring a lot of opportunities, and our panelists and hopefully our audience is also positive that given the condition that we do our best as business communities to strengthen this relationship, there are lots of opportunities to further utilize in Turkey-US business economic relations. And of course, in the short term, there might be some negative impact of COVID-19 on global trade and investment. But in the medium to long term, there are lots of opportunities that we need to always follow, and always encourage our business communities to further follow. If we don't have any further comments from our panelists, or I think we don't have any further questions from the audience, I would like to thank everyone, our panelists and our audience. That it was a great panel, and I think it was the first panel of the conference. Thank you, everyone. And we all believe that we will have much stronger relations between economic relations between